So, hey everyone, I'm Ed Biden. I'm one of the co-founders of Hustle Badger, and today I'm going to give you a little bit of an intro to AI prototyping, where I basically just show you one of the tools and I build something live. Now, this is going to be a very kind of unpolished session by design. So, I'm going to be building a weather app in Lovable. I'm going to go quite slowly partly so that you can follow along if you want to, um, partly because I flew in from the US this morning on a red eye, and so I'm not at my quite my sharpest self. But this is also a little bit by design. I'm kind of hoping some things go slightly wrong so you can see my debugging process, but not so wrong that they derail the whole demonstration. So we'll see how that works out. Um, it's also, a live session if you are here now coming through the Luma link. So please do ask me questions, make suggestions. I want this to be sort of as useful for you as possible. If you're watching this on our YouTube channel later, you probably want to watch this at about 1.5 speed or two x speed or something to get the so that it's a bit more interesting. Before we kick off, I am just going to drop a few links into the chat. And I'll try and keep one eye on the chat as I sort of like work through things. So if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I talk about AI prototyping and AI tooling quite a bit. The recording for this session is going to be on our YouTube channel where all our recordings are. So do subscribe to that if you haven't already. Um, if you want to register for other Hustle Badger talks, webinars, then check out our Luma page. And if this is kind of interesting and you want to go deeper, then do check out our Build with AI course. We have a cohort kicking off next week, and we cover not just AI prototyping, but also sort of AI coding. So using Cursor or anti-gravity, Claude Code, those kinds of tools, as well as building agents and agentic workflows in Relay.app. So, with that, let me get going. And actually, just before I really dive into Lovable, a little bit about sort of my journey with these tools. I've been building things with these tools for about 9 months now. And I'm going to stop sharing this because I'm going to show you just some of the other things that I've built. So I've been using initially I was using Replit. I've been trying out V0, Figma Make. I'm now using I went through a cursor phase. I'm now using anti-gravity a lot. So I've played around with a lot of the tools and happy to kind of answer questions on that as well. But one of the things um, that I found is like, as soon as you start using these AI prototyping tools, you get so much more confident with how products are built and how code looks overall, that actually making this step up to a full IDE like Cursor or Anti-Gravity, it becomes much less intimidating. And so that's actually, I now go almost always just like straight into an IDE. But let's have a look at Mood Movie. So I'm hoping you can see this. Can you see Movie Genre Explorer? Yeah, great. So this was one of the very first things that I kind of coded. I actually did this in Replit, and it's just a simple, um, you know, movie recommendation engine. This took about 2 or 3 hours. So you can see you can pick your genre, you can pick the era. This is all kind of like relative to my age, basically. And then you see you get some movies here recommended, and these all have, I think, at least 70 or 80% on IMDb. You can see that there. And then if you kind of want to watch the trailers, those just kind of pop up straight away, which is quite nice, and you can watch them. So something like this, you can easily build in an evening. And most of the time that I spent building this was actually getting the styling right and kind of like getting these nice gradients and things. Again, one of the first things I did. Since then, I've gone into some more kind of functional stuff. So I've been building things like this API Explorer. So if you want to check out let me just reload this. If you want to check out like an API like this Google one, you can see what you get back from it. We're going to be using an API today, so you'll see that might be quite useful. And a couple of things, or maybe just one thing I was building um, over Christmas, I decided to build this kind of showcase for vibe coded projects, which I haven't really shared with anyone else yet, but it's only got my projects in. But you can see some of these things that I've been building, and quite nice. I think this was like again one evening, but it has Google login and or email login, and people can submit their projects. And when you click through to them, you can see kind of how they built it and all this sort of stuff and what they built it in. So again, just to give you like a few different things that I've been building recently. Anyway, what we're going to do tonight, as I say, is build something in Lovable, and I thought we'd just build like a very simple weather app. Um, I'm going to show you kind of almost like the easiest thing you can do, and then I'm going to kind of start kind of developing that a little bit more. Um, as I say, if you have questions, suggestions, please jump in the chat, and we'll kind of like do those as we go along. So yeah, at its simplest, like Lovable, if you create an account, and I've just got the free version at the moment, well, hopefully that'll be enough for this evening. We can just kind of like we'll get this little prompting page, prompt box here, and we could just ask it to build something. Now, usually if I am XI on my own, which I know you're all here, but I mean I'm not in a shared office. I will be using voice. So I'll probably just chat to it and ask it to build me a weather app, see what it does, and then based on that, we'll kind of rebuild it with a bit of a better prompt and a bit of a more detailed spec. Can you build me a simple weather app that shows me what the weather is like in Peckham in London? So so you can see that's just kind of really, really easy. Don't need to think about it. It may ask me some questions here. Some of the AI prototyping tools will ask you kind of clarification questions, or they will do a little plan before they build. Um, this is going to, so here it's coming up with what's its design, right? This is what it's going to build, features, weather condition icon, great, and it's off, right? So it hasn't asked me for any approval here. Um, it's just getting going. Fine. While it's doing that, yeah, I've mentioned some of the tools there, and a few people have posted in the chat what they're using. I'm using Lovable just because that seems to sort of be one of the more popular tools or one of the more like known tools at the moment. But really, you can use any tool, Replit, Figma Make, V0, Bolt, and there are a bunch of others. They all work fairly similarly. Like they have almost always, very similar feature parity for the most part, um, and very similar UI as well. So there aren't at the moment huge barriers to choosing different tools, and actually switching between tools is really easy as well. Okay, so you can see how long was that? Maybe a minute or two, and we've already got a little weather thing here, um, which is great. So what can we see here? It's got the weather, partly cloudy, seems right. Feels like 1 degrees, feels about right. It's pretty cold right now. Humidity, wind. I mean, this doesn't look ridiculous. And it says it's getting the weather from Open Meteor, which is it's a free weather API as well, even though I didn't tell it what to do. But we can check that actually. Why don't we just have a quick look at like weather in Peckham today? Okay, so and I'm assuming you can see my Google screen now. Yeah, can you see? Yeah, great. So yeah, we can see it's 6 degrees. Here it's saying humidity is 79% and wind speed is 9 miles per hour. So 9 miles per hour, 15 kilometers per hour, that feels about right. Okay, great. So we've got something. It's not very exciting, but we gave it a very simple prompt. So if you want to build something, I that is like the kind of as bare bones as you can get, and weather app as well as sort of like something very um basic or kind of like classic kind of hello world, just get going. Um, type of project. But let's mix it up a bit. Like usually if I'm building something, I won't type out a prompt like this. Um, because what you want is generally like a more detailed prompt, more kind of requirements in there, so that what you get is closer to, or what Lovable builds is actually closer to what you want, rather than just sort of the average of what the internet might think of as a weather app. That's yeah. Essentially, there's a bunch of LLMs behind Lovable or any of these tools that are building the code here, right? So if you don't give them any instructions, they will just default to sort of what they've been trained on, which is the entire internet. So you will get a kind of very plain vanilla beige type of apps. The more context you give them, the more details, then the more it's going to be personalized to you. So let's create a new chat here. And again, I'm going into ChatGPT. You could do this in Gemini, you could do this in Claude, wherever you want to. And I'm going to use the dictation mode. But what I'm going to use here is just like a kind of combination of prompts and techniques that help me get a spec really quickly that I can then drop into Lovable very fast. So let's go for it. So I want to build a weather app, and I in an AI prototyping tool, and I want you to help me write the spec for it. So I'm going to give you the basic idea for it, but then I want you to ask me any clarifying questions until we've got enough information for you to write up a kind of simple, not too fancy prompt that I can copy paste into Lovable. Um, does that make sense? Just say yes or no, and if yes, I'll give you a couple more requirements before you start asking me questions. Great, so it's understood that. Oh, the other thing I forgot to mention is strictly only ask me one question at a time. I don't want you printing out like 30 questions for me to ask all at once. Anyway, okay, so this weather app, um, I want it to be for where I am at the moment, which is in Peckham in London. And the problem I have with most weather apps is that I don't know what the weather is compared to yesterday. So I want to show the weather today versus the weather yesterday. And then I'll have the kind of relative difference. Is it warmer or colder than yesterday, which will help me understand what I should wear. The other thing is, you know, 15 degrees, 8 degrees, like, what does that mean? Should I wear a coat? Should I wear thick socks or thin socks? Should I wear a hat? Do I need sunscreen? What I want you to do, as well as showing me the actual numbers, I want you to translate that into a kind of useful, practical, not too detailed, just kind of like, but sensible guide on what I should wear. Do I need a coat? Do I need an umbrella? Do I need sunscreen? That kind of thing. Um, yeah, that's the basic idea. So yeah, got any questions, then ask me those and we'll clarify them before you write up the spec. So I can just do this in voice and you can see I can be quite chatty. Oh no, ChatGPT has somehow failed to capture this. Or has it? What's going on? Well, I did say I wanted things to go wrong, so there we go. It's just like not got any of that. Right, we'll try that again. Despite the fact I've had this problem with ChatGPT a few times actually. I don't know if any of you have, where it won't record stuff. But even so, I still generally find it better to use voice. Only ask me strictly one question at a time. This weather app, I want to get the weather yesterday as well as the weather today so that I can compare between the two. And I also want you to convert today's weather into a kind of practical but simple guide of what to wear. Do I need a hat? Do I need a coat, umbrella, sunscreen, that sort of thing? Um, okay, ask me any questions. If you do have to repeat yourself, you generally get to the point much faster, which is the benefit. Okay, location model. Right. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. And here, if you do this, I kind of always recommend this on the kind of some of the courses I teach. Someone came back and was like, "Yeah, I spent 2 hours like answering questions." I was like, "Whoa." you don't have to answer every single question that ChatGPT has because ChatGPT will just keep asking you questions. Just answer like three or four and then kind of tell it that you've done enough. Um, let's just make it kind of hard coded. I'm in Peckham, London, so people don't need to be able to change the date. This is just for me. I just want this to run in a browser, so it'd be great if it's kind of responsive, so it works on both mobile and web. Uh, and you can also you can usually tell kind of when it's not worth writing and or like responding to questions because the questions get a bit boring. How literal should the what to wear guidance be? A fixed checklist? No, 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 no. Okay. Let's have a short, plain English advice, like, your mum might give you if you are going out, like, oh, you better take a coat, love, that sort of thing. By the way, if anyone here has suggestions of how they want this weather app to turn out, please do stick them in the chat, and I will be happy to build a few of them in. Now, this is quite interesting because if you're not technical, then you probably don't have any idea about like APIs or anything like this. And the great thing about talking over your specs with ChatGPT is you don't need to know the answers to these things. You can just kind of flip this back to ChatGPT. I don't really know anything about weather APIs, so I just want one that is free and has good quality data. Maybe you can recommend one. So what I do a lot of the time is, if it's a technical requirement, then I will kind of ping it back to ChatGPT. If it's a kind of user requirement, which I've got a feeling for, then I'll give it an answer. Which of these do you prefer? Oh, I don't know. I mean, I literally know nothing about weather APIs, so you pick one. Don't let ChatGPT bully you into giving it you answers. Okay, it's going to use open weather. I do actually know a bit about weather APIs now that because I've done this a few times, but let's see. Next question. For yesterday's weather, do you want summary data only, average temperature, yeah, or hour by hour breakdown? No. I just want summary data. I just want to know like snapshot, yesterday versus today. Is it going to be warmer, colder? That sort of thing. I don't need an hour by hour breakdown. In fact, I might just kind of two more questions max. Let's not spend the whole time answering questions. Do you want the comparison to be explicitly stated in words? Today is colder than yesterday. Uh, let's yeah, show. No, 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 just I've changed my mind. I've changed my mind. I just want to see them side by side. I just want to see them side by side. The good thing about this as well is if you've got a kind of a vague idea, then you will actually kind of force yourself to get it much clearer in your mind when you do this. Historical reference and so sorry, I'm just looking at the chat here. Derek would like to see a historical reference in simplified terms, something like, oh, Derek, I just answered that question. I'll change my mind. I'll follow your lead. Change my mind. Last question. Do you want the tone of the app itself to be neutral, or do you want the whole app to use that warm, slightly cheeky voice? Let's go for the warm, slightly cheeky voice. Warm, slightly cheeky tone of voice. Okay. So, do we need to be conscious of? So, another question here in the app. Do we need to be conscious about the tech stack for the web app? No, like anything technical like that, you don't really need to care about. Okay, copy paste lovable prompt. So you can just do this. You could just kind of copy this and paste it in. I quite often like asking ChatGPT to put it into Markdown, uh, because it then just comes out as a code block which you can copy paste really easily. So here you see, I don't have to worry about formatting and whether that's going to kind of translate into the lovable prompt box or not. Um, so and I also can just copy this bit here. So right, let's go back to lovable. I feel like I'm having lovable, right? Um, let's rebuild this with the following prompt. Okay, so and you can see I've just pasted all of that stuff straight in, and we'll go for it. Now, this, because this is a much longer prompt, this is probably going to take a little bit longer than the initial app. So whilst that took like like a minute to generate, this I wouldn't be surprised if it takes, three, four, maybe even 5 minutes to come up with something. But let's see what it does. It's already got kind of a basic here. Okay, so here it's saying, again, it's talking about APIs. It wants to use the Meteo API rather than the open weather one. Yeah. And in fact, it's not even asking me for approval. It's just going to use the API. I think in the last month or 6 weeks, the LLMs are always changing, but they have become a little bit more opinionated. And so rather than always asking you like, oh, but is it okay if I use this other API? You can see here, Lovable's just been like, yeah, you asked for this API, but actually I disagree, so I'm going to go with this one. So it's got more of an opinion, which is usually good. But if you do have a particular reason for wanting to use a particular API, that you haven't told it, you can just stop it, right, and correct it, and you shouldn't be afraid to do that. Um, so Aiden's asking, do you feel that if there's any value in using different AI tools to review your prompt, generate the prompt in ChatGPT and get Claude to review? So I usually wouldn't get another LLM to review a prompt. If I wasn't doing this live, I would have read through this myself and kind of just fine-tuned the prompt myself to make sure it's looking good. If I've actually got the code there, I will occasionally use different LLMs or different tools to review each other, but generally only if they get stuck. So, if Lovable is kind of running into a loop of bugs where it's just having real problems showing something, then I might copy some bits of the code or just take a screenshot of the errors I'm seeing, drop that into, you know, ChatGPT, Gemini, and say, hey, can you help me debug this? And that's really kind of helpful. Like again, these days you don't even need to copy the code really, or the errors you're getting. Like a screenshot is going to tell them um, everything that they need to know. And I've seen ChatGPT kind of spot literally like typos in API requests and correct it and explain it to me like what's going on. So you see, I've kind of learned a little bit about APIs over the last few months from building things like this. But getting this far, you don't really need to know anything about APIs to build stuff that's using APIs, using real data, um, and is coming up, with proper data here. Okay, so that was pretty quick. So what we can see, yesterday versus today, historical comparison, pretty typical for this time of year, actually. Yeah, great. Mum style clothing advice. It's chilly and wet, blowing a gale. Take your waterproof and maybe an extra layer. You'll thank me later. Ah, that's kind of nice. Friendly error messages, right. Okay. So just checking out, the biggest blocker I find using these tools is giving them database access to uploading data. The use case I'm building for prototyping at the moment is an app that requires lots of data in the form of tables. Yeah, can we speak a bit more about, I was going to say, if so we've got our basic app here, and I think we might do like a few things. So firstly, what we could do is um, think about yeah, connecting this to say Supabase. So why don't we do that? And something that we might do for this is say, so Supabase, if you want to store any data persistently in your app that you're building, you're going to need a database. Right? So you need to store that data somewhere. Um, for a lot of these prototyping tools, Supabase is kind of like the default go-to kind of database off a shelf that you can set up. And so you could use that for user records, or you could use that for any other data that you're storing. So some of those other apps that I showed you, like my vibe coded showcase, like that uses Supabase to store all the different projects, all the different users. For this one, we can sort of get it to set up a Supabase database by um, having a user login and then having a getting it to save on person by person basis which locations they wanted. So why don't we set that up and we'll do that in we can just do that in the chat. This looks great. Now, can you add a database in Supabase? What I want to happen is, users can sign up with an email and a password, and then the first time they sign up, we ask them what their location is, and that should be a postcode or address lookup. And then we should save that between sessions so that when they log in, they see the weather for where they are. Okay, so this should then, it might ask me to upgrade so that we can use Lovable Cloud. So yeah, to show you a few more features on Lovable, and again, like most of the AI tools have these different kind of features in one way or another. Um, it's asking for Lovable Cloud to add authentication and database storage, right? So yeah, I'm going to allow that. At the top here, you're going to see a few different things. The main window here you can see is a preview of what we're building. Um, but actually, we can look at the code here. That's probably the first one I would go to, and you can see all the different files that Lovable has written then to build our app. And you can go in and you can edit these yourself if you really want to. Um, it's been asking to, ooh, I got a little bonus. Should I claim I will claim my 5 credits. Great, yes, free credits. Thank you, Lovable. Um, So uh, Cloud is up here. Cloud has a whole bunch of things. They've added this quite recently, where you can have a database, you can have storages will be for kind of like, images, videos, audio files, kind of like any kind of like media things that you want there. You'll then have, it looks like, oh yeah, the AI stuff here lets you kind of add in LLM calls, LLM API calls to your apps fairly easily. You've got logs if you're debugging, which you don't need to worry about. I think users will be authentication, so you can see who's signing up here. Is this still going? Lovable Cloud's enabled. Now I'll create database schema and then implement authentication. I think it's just waiting for me to put that aloud. So yeah, so this is basically a database query. You can see it's SQL basically, but running this is going to set up the database for me. So generally, if you see a blue button, you can click on it and it will sort it out. Um, right, database is set up. Has it set it up in? Now I'll create the components and the pages. Now, interestingly, I wonder where it's actually created that database and if it's created it in Supabase or not, because it hasn't asked me for any Supabase setups, has it? No, I don't think so. And there's nothing here. I wonder where it's put that then. Well, I'll wait for it to stop editing and then we can investigate a little bit further. Once it's created this, the other thing I will do is I'll publish it so you can all get personalized and mum-friendly advice on the weather as well. But I'll also just push it to GitHub. So if you did want to, both to show you how that works, but also if you want to download it yourself, you could do that. Right. So it's editing all the stuff here. Supabase, if you are going to play around with it, I'll just show. Ooh, I'll show you. It's a little. I mean, no, it's a lot more technical than Lovable. You generally don't really need to go into it that much. So I'm already signed up. you'll see I've got a few different projects here. Again, so this is the vibe, vibe coding showcase one. So you can see, like it will show you the tables that you've got in your database. It will show you all the things that you've got. So these are the different projects that I saw, that you saw there, and it's got some of these, you can see all the data entries. So it's really kind of useful for storing databases, and it does have a free tier and all that sort of stuff. If you want to do authentication, it helps you set up all of that stuff. So you can see here, I've got Google login for that one, and you can see, it's got my email address. It tells me how I've logged up. That said, getting this set up, you're going to have API keys that you're going to have to store environment variables. ChatGPT, Gemini will talk you through how to do this. And as with anything else, like, if you get to the stage where Lovable or ChatGPT is saying like, hey, maybe you should set up a Superbase database. Firstly, I'd sort of like challenge it and say like, okay, just talk me through why we need to do that, so that you understand what it's doing. Then once you're happy that's the right decision, just ask it to talk you through the steps and and follow them. Um, you will just learn so much by doing that, as well as you'll get to the outcome that you want to. Um, I've yet to find a technical concept that I could not understand or something that I could not do myself, just by following that approach of just asking an LLM to talk me through it. Um, Derek's asking, how do you deal with issues using private API keys for published web apps? How do you prevent the keys from showing the source code? Yeah, so this is a really good question. And again, like things are moving so quickly that 6 months ago, this was like the big scare thing. People being like, oh, but my API keys will be exposed. And, these vibe coders on X are getting, people seeing their API keys. And now it's just not a big deal. So if you go back to Lovable, um, we'll check out what it's done in just a moment. But if I had you know, API keys, those would go in a cloud here. And when you see the secrets, right? I could store API keys here. I put in the secret name, I put in the value, and I add as many as I want. When they are stored here, I'm not pasting them in the chat. I'm not writing them into the code base. When they are stored here, they are secure. So these are environment variables. And anywhere that you are, if you're building something in Cursor, anti-gravity, and you're then deploying it through something like Vercel or Netlify, they will have the same thing. Like, where do you put your environment variables? So you just need to figure out sort of like, where do these tools store environment variables? And again, you can just ask them, where do I store my API credentials securely, and how do I do that? And they will point you in the right direction. Okay, let's see what it's built. Um, the app now has authentication, location setup, persistent location, and let's just check the database. I'm still not seeing anything. Okay, where is the database? Is it? Oh, so one thing you can do if you're just asking a question and you don't want to burn credits, then you can see this little chat button. You can actually see. I'm hoping you can see the tooltip there. Chat without making edits to your project. So you can ask questions of Lovable and of the code base, without it kind of then going and editing things. So I'm just going to ask it if it's in Superbase or in Lovable. Because we did ask it to make it unlovable, but maybe it didn't. Let's sign up. Uh, at hustlebadger.com by giving it a very basic password. It's part of Lovable Cloud. Okay. I was hoping to show you Superbase set up. Lovable's overruled me and just built it in its own default database. I we could kind of go back and be like, no, 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 do this in Superbase, but maybe I think that would probably like take another 20 minutes or so. It might not be worth it right now. Can you explicitly ask the AI to harden the security on the app, check against OWASP top 10 exec, and get the desired result? Well, I don't know. I don't know what OWASP top 10 is, Andy, but let's find out. Um, Let's see what happens. So, I mean, remember again, because you've got an LLM behind all of these tools, you can ask them quite general questions, and they will give you an answer. Um, the thing you want to make sure is you're just in the right mode. They generally have a kind of coding mode and a chat mode. So coding mode will go and build a website for you. Chat mode will kind of answer questions. So it's almost a bit like the difference between, a thinking or a deep thinking model in ChatGPT versus a kind of like fast response model. Um, if you want to change the website, obviously put it into that thinking mode. That's the default mode, and go and build the website. But if you're just asking little questions about things, don't burn your credits. Stick it into chat mode and go from there. So, right. So it's doing a security analysis here, and you can see all the things it's doing. And I think even some of these tools now do have kind of security, so the kind of built-in security scans where they will kind of go and do different things. So here you can see it's up to date, right? So it's just run its this is what it's been doing here. What's working well? Postcode API call properly uses this to prevent injection. Authentication state is managed. Oh, that's interesting. So it's saying that the authentication state is managed via Supabase, not via local storage. And I think actually a lot of this, actually, I've seen this before with Lovable, is sometimes it will kind of give you slightly conflicting responses about where things are happening. Is it happening kind of in Lovable Cloud or in Supabase? And I think that's effectively because Supabase is powering a lot of this Lovable Cloud stuff. So I don't think it's lying to you so much as the parts of the code will say this is in Supabase because it is, but some of it will say like, no, 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 it's in Lovable because it's kind of almost got this Lovable layer on the front of it. So yeah, you could then follow these, enable leaked password protection, configure the authentication system to check passwords against known breach password databases. So we could do this. Um, it's just giving us a plan there. Let's see, maybe we can go through. Oh, there's a button, implement that plan. Great. What happens if we implement that plan? I'll probably go through and do it. Um, so we can, yeah, yeah, you can. Generally, what I found is any problem that you kind of pops up, you can ask an LLM either in one of these tools or again, like a general LLM, you're kind of like Claude, ChatGPT, like, I'm seeing this problem, how do I fix it? Um, or if you're anticipating problems, saying like, hey, I need really high security on this before I see this problem, like what problems might I see? How do I protect against that? Can you kind of stress test this for me? It will kind of tell you what are the main things you should think about, and then you can ask it about, okay, well, what is the solution there? So I was building an app where I wanted users to input their own LLM API keys so that they could test LLM prompts. And I didn't want them using my API keys. And obviously, like those API keys need to be stored securely. So actually, as soon as I started talking API keys and being able to put those in, ChatGPT kind of picked up that it needed to be storing those securely. And I could tell from just the way it was writing the spec and then the way that I was building this in anti-gravity, that anti-gravity was then responding. It was kind of doing things sensibly. And much as you would chat to a developer, right? You kind of, even if you're non-technical, you kind of gauge whether the requirements are being met, not because you understand on a technical level what it's doing, but because it's, the developer, the LLM is kind of talking in a way that convinces you that it's thought about all the problems. And if it seems to be a bit off or it seems to miss the point, then you ask for further follow-up questions and you double check and you maybe even run some tests, right? Okay. So it says it's done all these things. UK postcode validation, stronger passwords. It would probably fail my password now. Um, let's publish this, and then we'll see if there's weather app is not going to exist. Weather, maybe hustle badger weather. There we go. Who can visit this? Yeah, anyone. Great, let's do it. Oh, I'm still seeing a warning. This may now be this. Hopefully, this leaked password disable should be fixed if I from this work that it just did. So we've got a few more questions in the chat. Let me just get back to those. Is this publishing? Oh, it's got to do a security scan before it publishes. Right. Do you have any thoughts on the quality of code that is generated by Lovable? I'm not a dev, but the pushback I tend to get is that the code can be difficult to build on top of an app which is being AI vibe coded. Uh, so I think I do think there is a difference between, working on a legacy product with these tools and shipping code versus building something from scratch. A kind of existing product will just have a generally a much bigger code base that is then, you know, difficult to understand for the LLMs. You want the code in kind of good order for humans to build on in the future, and you're going to need a slightly more nuanced approach. If you are building something from scratch, though, or if you're prototyping something which is throwaway code, you're then going to ask some developers to human developers to build it for you for real. Then I just don't care about the code quality because I care about whether it works or not. And I'm not looking at the code. And you're even seeing, we saw the founder of Claude Code saying that, he is like stopping like writing code himself, even for writing code for Claude Code. Claude Code is now writing its own code. Um, and so I think the kind of this issue of code quality is going to become less of a thing. Yes, of course, you're going to get some engineers who are very particular about the way that they build things and what it looks like. But increasingly, you're just going to get a lot of people being like, yeah, but does it work? Like, does it ship? Like, and that is the only test that really matters. Um, Sarah's then asking if you wanted to integrate it with something like Runner, e.g., shows you that the weather might be too challenging for your program. Could you do that? Um, yes, if Runner has an API. As soon as you start coding these things, like getting familiar with APIs is one of the most powerful things you can do because you can integrate with all these different services and get real data from things like weather API. You can integrate with Superbase or Google Login or whatever it is, or other, Strava, Runner, whatever it is that you want to as well. And the limitation is just like, do they have an API and what information can you get out of that API? And that is something that LLMs are very, very good at doing because APIs generally have documentation and LLMs love reading documentation and summarizing it. So happy days for everyone. Don't read the documentation yourself. Ask ChatGPT, is there an API? What can it do? And just ask it a few kind of follow-up questions as well. I didn't realize that this security scan took so long, but there we go. It's still running. Oh, so it looks like it has not fixed this thing. There's a few things here. This, I thought it said it was going to fix. It seems to have just ignored the issue. Anyway, I did want to come back and see if we could publish this. No changes to publish. Oh, is this already live? I had completely missed that. Well, there you go. I thought we had to run the security check, but there you go. If you want to check out my lovely app, you now can. You should all be able to sign up. Let me know if you have any problems. So we could of course kind of go and do all sorts of things here. We could check how this security pass is done and try and kind of fix some of those issues there. We could add new features. We could, I said I was going to push it to actually let's see if we just quickly push it to GitHub if we want to. Where are we? Permissions to GitHub is, I mean, I've already signed up to GitHub. So it's very, very simple. So connect to GitHub, uh, connect project. There we go. I'm going to use this one. Yes, great. I'm going to transfer it anyway. So yeah, I mean, GitHub repository is now there. And if we go to GitHub, let's go to, do we have, there we go. There it is. So there's my Hustle Badger weather code base. I mean, again, if you're not technical, you probably don't care that you've now got your code in GitHub. Um, but this is quite useful if if I did want to pull this into a different tool, or I wanted someone else to be able to use this code. Um, this is private. Can I make this public? I might not mess around. You can rebuild this so quickly; it's probably not even worth making it public. So yeah, you can do all that sort of stuff. Um, Elakia is saying like, is this recording going to be available? Yes, and let me drop those links quickly back into the chat. So the recording for this will be on our YouTube. Again, we're going to have probably more talks like this on our Luma. And if you did want to go deeper on this topic, then you can check out our Build with AI cohort as well. As I mentioned at the start, it kind of we spend time going deeper into the techniques that I've kind of shown today. We also go into how to use cursor, anti-gravity, some of the kind of IDEs, kind of slightly more powerful tools, as well as how to kind of build agents and things. Anyway, I'd be really interested to get your feedback on this session. Um, I'd be happy to do more sessions like this in the future. And if people wanted to look at slightly different, um, skills or techniques, like going deeper into setting up a database, or setting up Stripe, or something like that, I'd be super happy to kind of talk through those and showcase those as well. So yeah, do let me know. Drop me a message on LinkedIn, or drop me a quick email.